Hey guys, Dagatsu here. Roccat has recently released their newest addition to their mouse lineup, the Roccat Kone Pro, and the wireless version, the Kone Pro Air. And after saving up some money in my piggy bank, I recently got my hands on one. And while this review is of the wired version, everything I say will still apply to the wireless version as well. Before I dive deeper in my thoughts on the mouse, here's a quick look. Included in the box is the mouse itself, a pair of extra PTFE mouse gates, a cable management tie, and the quick start guide, which has all the information on how to configure the mouse either with or without their software, which is nice if you're someone who doesn't like to install a lot of extra software on your computer. You can adjust the DPI, the polling rate, the liftoff distance, and RGB modes natively on the mouse without needing to install the software. However, within the software, you can also set up other things like macros and key bindings. The Kone Pro is advertised as 66 grams, while the wireless version, the Kone Pro Air, is around 75 grams. As far as the dimensions are concerned, I'll have those on the screen now. Just note, this is a pretty large mouse. Moving on, the sensor they went with is Rockat's custom sensor, the Ally 19K, which is based off the PixArt 3370. In terms of shape, when I put my hand on this mouse for the first time, I was very surprised. And I don't know why I was surprised that a mouse that's made to be ergonomic and comfortable was comfortable, but it's easily within my top 5 mice in terms of pure comfort. However, when I actually started using it, my love for the shape quickly began to waver. Within the first few minutes, I could tell that as someone who's been using ambidextrous mice for the last couple years, I was going to need some time to adjust. But as one might suspect, the more time I spent using it, the more it grew on me. And by the end of the week, I was almost playing at the same level that I usually do. Keyword being almost. But that's something that's ultimately going to differ from person to person, so I can't really fault the mouse for that. With its overall size and the deep thumb groove, I think most large hand gamers will find this mouse to be a very solid option, especially if you're a fan of ergo shapes. One cool thing about this mouse is the fact that the mouse gates are heat treated. I'm not exactly sure what difference this actually makes, but I did notice that the mouse definitely had great glide out of the box. Not only did it have a great glide, but it also had a great cable. When using the mouse, I never really had to think about the cable, and that's a good thing. In fact, at one point, I accidentally pulled it out of my mouse bungee so the cable was just lying on the desk, and I still hardly noticed it. The build quality was also pretty decent. Overall, the mouse felt solid when gripping, and I didn't notice any creaks. However, one thing I did notice, right away in fact, was the rattling noises it made when I picked it up out of the box. I later discovered that it was the front mouse buttons responsible for this. There was a little side play, but not too much. I suspect the rattling noise has more to do with the RGB that's underneath them than anything else. Ultimately, it's just a minor annoyance because it doesn't actually rattle with normal use. However, it is something that does make the mouse feel cheap. But other than that, I have no gripes with the build quality. One complaint that some people have with this mouse is the feeling of the clicks. The switches are Titian optical switches, which means in theory, they're faster to activate and more durable than typical switches. The trade-off here being the clicks feel less satisfying. However, I personally really didn't mind the feeling of the clicks, and in my own opinion, I actually prefer lighter clicks on my mice. So it's going to ultimately come down to personal preference. The side buttons were nice and big, but I do wish they were ever so slightly lower on the mouse. Although the placement of them may be a blessing for those with wider fingers. Here's a quick sound test. The scroll wheel on this mouse is definitely going to have some fans. It has quite a bit of tension to it, and it has a lot of steps, so when you scroll, it feels very deliberate. This is what Roccat is calling their Titan Wheel Pro, and apparently it's also milled from aluminum for what that's worth. Another thing to mention here is the coating. Throughout most of the mouse, it uses a standard matte coating, but once you get to the sides, it has this very subtle texture change of tiny edged in lines. So subtle, in fact, I didn't even notice it right away. But it seems to do its job well, because I never had any issues with my grip slipping. Overall, my experience with the Roccat Kone Pro has been a roller coaster. When I first put my hand on it, I was super excited to start using it. Being someone with 20cm by 10.5cm hands, I found the shape and size to be very comfortable. But once I started using the mouse in game, I was a little disappointed in my performance with it. However, after I spent more time with it, I started to see its potential. And while it may not be my personal top choice, if it was suddenly for some reason the only mouse I could ever use, I wouldn't really mind. And I think in an alternate universe where I prefer ergo mice to ambi mice, this might just be my top pick. But back in reality, it's somewhere in my top 10. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and for more content like this, consider subscribing.